Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Welcome to Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and joining me tonight is Holly Seibold. We have had Holly on the show many times talking about the organization she founded, BRAWS, bringing resources to aid women's shelters, but now we are talking to Holly in her role as a candidate. She is running for the House of Delegates in District 35 in a special election to replace former Delegate Mark Keam, who resigned his position to take a position in the Biden administration. So thank you so much, Holly, for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Catherine.
So this has kind of been an exciting sort of ride for you, not necessarily something you planned for or expected, but you and I have supported a lot of women candidates in the years that we've known each other, right? We have done fundraisers and events of all varieties, and I think each of us thought that our role was being the cheerleader, then the supporter behind all those amazing women running for office.
Yeah.
But women have to be ready in a moment to be the one to step up.
Right.
And when Mark Keam decided that he was going to take an administrative position, that left this seat open at an awkward time of the year.
Right.
So let's go back to when he decided that he was going to resign. What did that look like for you when you realized that you had all of the qualifications that you've been telling women for years they've had to run for office, but this time it was you?
Right. Yeah, it was a big decision for my family. Definitely needed some time to think about it, but at the end of the day, I wanted to be a voice for our community. I've been an active member of our community for many, many years. With as a teacher first at Vienna Elementary School, then as a resident. Both my kids go to schools in the 35th district, and then as a nonprofit leader and a community leader in the area. Many of our volunteers are active members of the 35th district, and it was important for me to represent their voices and bring those down to Richmond and be an advocate for them.
And you have been, and those who've seen you before on the show, and not everybody may have, they know that you have been an advocate in the legislature on issues of menstrual equity. And you have 3 bills that have passed because of your efforts. In fact, one goes into effect January 1st.
Right.
And that is the total removal of the tampon tax, what we call the tampon tax.
Yes, exactly.
Years in the making.
Right. Right. As a teacher, it was important to me to ensure that those who menstruate have access to supplies so that they didn't miss class. It was an education issue. And so for many, many years, I, along with other advocates in the community, would work with Delegate Mark Keam, and as well as Senator Boysko, Delegate Kate Corey, and other legislators. So I had experience. I was able to say I can run for this seat because I know how Richmond works. A lot of people do not know, and so I knew that I was qualified, very qualified to step in midterm for Mark because I had that experience. And so we worked on that bill, and I was able to take many people from my community down to Richmond with me and to testify. And also we worked on bills that would help those who are incarcerated have dignity, so that when they re-enter society, that they feel strong enough and confident enough to get jobs and to do good. And then we also worked on what you mentioned, the tampon tax, for many, many years, for 6 years, never giving up, because it's important to me that working families do not have the extra burden of purchasing products that are basic necessities. So we wanted that eliminated right away, but that took some more time.
And that was a long battle, because people don't realize what is taxed or what is not taxed.
Right.
So tampons and menstrual supplies were taxed, but dandruff shampoo was not.
Exactly.
There was very odd things that were like, well, we're not going to tax that, but we're going to tax this.
Yeah.
And these are products that are needed on a regular basis, and they're very expensive to begin with.
Right. The cost was astronomical for families who have who have many, many people in their family who menstruate. And so to me, it was something that was a no-brainer. Like, this is something that should be eliminated. It should be something that we could give back to our community. And so I fought for it many years, and starting January 1st, it no longer will be taxed.
And so you think about 6 years. Every year you have gone down to session for 6 years.
Yes.
You were not a legislator.
No.
You were simply an advocate.
Right, right.
And you took a lot of teenagers and your own daughter Morgan and your son Maddie when they were little, and you took them down there to sit through subcommittee hearings and committee hearings,
Right.
you know, to sit in the gallery and to hear the votes. You know, I think this is where we see you as a teacher.
Yeah.
Because you knew that the best way for these young people to learn how to advocate for themselves was to give them the opportunity to do that. You literally took them and put them in front of subcommittees of legislators so they could speak their truth and talk about the difficulties and the challenges, especially for the not having these products in the school restrooms.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to that citizens are active in the legislative process. I mean, as a legislator, I would be responsible for carrying the voices of my community into Richmond, and I think it's really important to make that community and more engaged and active, and like, even if it means getting them down to Richmond in this, you know, it's a part-time legislator body, but like, it's really important that they come down during that time and see the process for themselves and know that they have a voice. And if they want to make a change, they should reach out to their elected officials, and they should let them know that this is important to me. And as an elected official, our job is to relay that information. It's, you know, we work with our community, not against them, and you know, and so their priorities are my priorities. And so if that's something that I can do as an elected official, I'd like to do that. I'd like to, you know, encourage those in my community to come down there and participate and tell me what they want to see change.
Well, you know, again, you started out as an elementary school teacher 20 years ago when you arrived in the Vienna community, teaching at Vienna Elementary School, you know, and I think you as a teacher understand that people don't know what they don't know, right? So how did you learn? In other words, how did you learn how policy gets made? How did you learn if you wanted something changed?
Right.
How do you get that? How does that happen?
Right.
So there was a process where you had to learn it too.
Right.
Nobody told you.
No. Yeah. No, I look, first I was very passionate. I mean, that's something that's really important. I was a teacher, as you mentioned, at Vienna Elementary School, and I had a very good relationship with my students. They were very special to me, and they encouraged me to keep being involved in the process, because I think it's really important that that we as ordinary citizens advocate for those who necessarily cannot amplify their voices. And so I was driven by them. Later on, I had 2 kids of my own, driven by them as well, and just driven by the stories I heard in school and as a nonprofit leader. And so having that background, having that passion made me want to understand the process better. And then that's when I just, you know, started doing my research. I started reaching out to my legislators who walked me through the process. You know, I happened to work with very good legislators who were happy to and very open and welcoming and encouraging to hear my voice and also the voices of those who I was representing. And so they did walk me through the process. I was never alone, and you know, an ordinary citizen just like me can do it as well. So, you know, the expression's true. Ordinary people can do extraordinary things. They just have to put their mind to it. And that is what I did, and that is what I'm hoping to do as a elected official representing the 35th district.
So your children are 15 and 12.
Yes.
And so if people do the math on that, and you've been going to Richmond for 6 years, you've been doing this since they were very small.
Right, right. I wanted them to see that they can make change when they have a voice in the process.
Absolutely. And I think it's interesting in our legislature now, because less than a decade ago, Virginia did not have a lot of women in the legislature. In fact, less than 10 years ago, like in 2015, I think there maybe was one legislator that had a school-aged child.
Right.
Now you look at the diversity in our legislature, both the Senate and in the House, and they are women like you who have children in school and have stepped up to do this job as well, because this really is, democracy is about regular people stepping up and performing this public service, being our government. And do you think people really understand that? Or have a grasp that it's just regular people who are the government?
Exactly, and I love to see the diversity that exists right now in the House. You know, I met with several of them over the last few weeks, and you know, just different backgrounds, you know, different identities, and moms, lots of moms with kids. And we need more moms down in Richmond. We need them to speak up for what's best for our children. Definitely need more women, just in general, to speak up for what's best for the needs and priorities of women, and particularly the freedoms and autonomy over their own body. And so I'm really excited to see so many women in our caucus. First time ever that there's been a majority. So that's amazing and wonderful, and I'm looking forward to fighting with them to protect women's rights.
I know, and it has happened all of a sudden, or it seems like it happened all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Some of that was the election of Trump. I think, you know, the Women's March made women realize what was at stake, number one, and also made them realize they have a tremendous amount of power, number two.
Yeah.
And then so many women stepped up in 2017. You know, we almost had a tie. Shelley Simon ended up losing some bizarre film role pick weird thing, so that it ended up being 49 Democrats that year. But the fact of the matter is that representation matters. And for too long, women have not been represented in our government. And so a lot of the policies that got made were not necessarily with women and children and families as the top priority.
Right.
And I think we're seeing how having more women in our legislature is changing that.
Right.
We have a different set of priorities.
Yeah, yeah. I you know, it's really exciting. And I just can't wait to serve with them and you know, be able to be that voice for women and mothers in our legislative body.
And it's a tough battle too. You had a primary, and it was a short primary. It was like 6 weeks.
Yes.
Really, and you had to get people's attention. You also had to raise a lot of money. I mean, there was just a lot going on for you first to have made the decision, then you had to raise the money, then you had a primary, and you had a primary opponent, you know, and so you had friends that ended up being divided into different camps.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot to take on, and I'm sure if no one's ever run for office, they really have no idea how the sausage gets made, even from this initial beginning. And so when we come back from a break, I want to talk to you a little bit more about the process, because I want our viewers to understand, you know, what your journey has been, and also to demystify what the actual journey is, because more people need to think about running for office.
I agree. Yeah, thank you.
I agree too. When we come back from this break, we're going to talk some more with Holly Seibold. She is running in a special election, January the 10th, for the House District 35, which includes Vienna. So join us after the break.
So, I just moved in with this family, and it's embarrassing. The little one, he likes to go outside and crawl around in the giant litter box. I don't know what he's doing. I mean, I was born and I knew how to use the litter box. Look at that. That's disgusting. Oh, poop already. You're making me nervous. Oh, okay, I can't look at this anymore. I really hope he grows out of this, for his sake.
So how was work?
It was 1,300 hours. My math class from 302 was in the trenches. Davy Roth had it the worst. Fractions were coming at him left and right. He just didn't get the damn things. 2 days ago, I tried to teach him what 1/4 of 1/2 was using different sizes of blocks. Yesterday, I tried again by dividing up pizza. Both missions failed.
Oh, no.
But today, I was ready. I created a combat math game where the only way to beat the enemy is to out-fraction them. Davy conquered every last denominator. My game was so successful, the principal is deploying it to math squadrons all over the school.
Anywho, how was your day?
Oh, today my boss treated the office to salad wraps.
Salad wraps.
I know.
150 over 90.
180 over 111.
160 over 110. I had a stroke.
This is what high blood pressure looks like. You might not feel its symptoms, but the results from a stroke are far from invisible or silent. If you've come off your treatment plan, get back on it or talk with your doctor to create an exercise, diet, and medication plan that works for you. Go to loweryourhbp.org.
If I would have followed a treatment plan, I would not be in this situation.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and we are talking with Holly Seibold. She is running in a special election on January the 10th to replace former Delegate Mark Keam in the 35th House District. I really appreciate you taking time out to do this because campaigning is a tough job. I know this for a fact.
Thanks for having me again. Thank you, Catherine.
So I want to kind of demystify it because I think a lot of people, even if they thought maybe I could run for a local office, not even the House of Delegates, their town council, you know, how about their school board?
Right.
So what's involved once you make a decision like, I think I want to run for school board?
Yeah.
What does that process look like when you're like, I think I want to do that?
I mean, for me, because it was a short special election primary, you know, for me it was just making sure I'm surrounded by really great people. And so luckily I have been involved, as I mentioned, in my community a long time, in addition to BRAWS and in addition to you know, being a teacher, I've been an active member of my PTA. I'm the head of our local swim team. My husband.
Your kids are very involved.
Yeah, my husband was, you know, coaching Babe Ruth baseball. I'm involved in VGSL softball. So through the years, I was able to make connections to a lot of folks in the community, and luckily they saw my work ethic. They knew I work hard and I got things done, and they said, that's exactly who we want in office. And so they stepped in to help. And you know, the PTA president of Madison is a good friend of mine, and she was there for me. And you know, another friend who is active in other nonprofits in the community was there for me. And they said, what do we need to do? And so we got them together a few nights a week, and we just talked, and we said, what's the best way to reach people in a short amount of time? And a lot of it was just door knocking, the old-fashioned canvassing, making sure that we're hitting as many doors as possible, letting people know, A, that there's an election, and that B, you know, that I was the best candidate, and C, this is why. And so not only did they do that for weeks and make phone calls, you know, they also, as it got closer to election day, reminded people constantly. I think, you know, when you're running, it's just a constant reminder to the point of driving people crazy that there's an election, and make sure you go vote. Because I think that's half of the battle, is just like, people are busy. Right? Yeah, people are busy, you know, they're involved in their day-to-day lives and, you know, driving carpool, and, you know, for some reason they think that their vote doesn't matter. And I hope, if anything, as time has gone by and you see how close some of these races have been, you know, my race, I won only by 70 votes. So every vote does matter. And so encouraging, having people, normal people in the community, that was my path, to go out and encourage other people, normal people in the community who may or may not necessarily vote all the time, to remember to vote, was key. And that was my strategy then. And as I proceed to this January 10th election, that would be the same strategy. You know I have a lot of support in the community, and I know people want to see me down at Richmond, but I think the key is to remind them on a cold winter day in January, which they don't and they're definitely tuned out of voting at that time of year.
That's true. Everybody's like, we just voted. Like, voting's over, midterms are done.
Yeah, so we need to educate folks that there's an election, and that they need to come out and vote. It's important.
So some of the mechanical parts of that, I guess we can throw this out there for the people listening. First of all, if you don't know if you live in the 35th district, you can go online to the Virginia elections, and you can type in your address, and it will tell you whether or not you're voting in the 35th district.
Yeah, just to clarify, the 35th district is part of the old district, which, so basically if they voted for Mark Keam last year, they can vote again this year. I would be finishing out his term. Now, moving forward, it turns into the 12th district. So that is different, and that will be the election in 2023 in November. So this is for voters.
So that everybody's on the same page.
Yeah.
January 10th, Holly is running in a special election in the 35th House District.
Right.
In November, Holly will be running again in the same year, but for House District 12.
Exactly, yeah.
Right, so twice.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's a
Keep
lot of
those pink
campaigning.
T-shirts. If you own a pink T-shirt that says Holly Seibold, hang on to it. You'll need it in November.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the pink because that's something I think that was fantastic during our last election. You know, my volunteers loved it. They loved walking around town in the pink shirts. They put signs in the yards that had with the pink, and it just really showed, I think, strength, especially for women. And they enjoyed it. I mean, some of my volunteers told me they would be walking down the street in their pink shirts, and someone would yell out the window like, "Go Holly!" So it was a constant reminder about this election, and that's what we really, when you're running in a very short election, that's really what you want to emphasize, that there is an election, and here is the date.
And I think it's important that you kind of owned using pink, because a short time ago, there are probably political consultants who would have said, oh, don't do that. You know, it's a girl color. It needs to be red, white, and blue. You know, you need to be warm and strong, which I joke about all the time because there's a quadrant, right? You need to be warm and strong. And you have to be all these things when you're a woman candidate. But I think a lot of that is changing. I think more women, younger women, are authentically showing up as themselves. And I think people are responding to that by going, pink T-shirts. I love it.
I know. Yeah, we wanted to lean into who I am and who I've always been. I mean, I've been a teacher as an educator. I think that's it should be more men, but unfortunately, it's primarily a women's business.
True.
Yeah, and I'm, you know, as I said, I'm active with girls softball. Girls sports are very important to me to make sure to give those girls opportunities. My daughter was one of the first group of girls who joined Boy Scouts. She was never really, Girl Scouts is awesome, but she was never really into like arts and crafts, and she was always into camping and fishing, and so it was a great opportunity, and we were honored to let her be as part of that first troop when girls were able to enter into Scouts. My nonprofit centers around lifting up women, and so, you know, and I've also always been an active member of the movement for reproductive rights. I've been an escort.
Planned Parenthood, it's all about that.
Exactly. And I personally have been an escort at like abortion clinics, helping women walk in and making them make sure that they feel safe. And so anyways, those are very important issues to me. Always, my life is centered around women's rights. And so, you know, pink was a no-brainer. It was something that I really wanted to highlight. So, and it worked out great because you could, you know, it was just very recognizable as well.
I think so too. I mean, you really carved that out. I've not seen any other candidate who's ever done anything like it.
Exactly.
And so kudos to you for being that bold and deciding to just be authentically yourself and forget, you know, trying to be the female version of male candidates, which I think for a long time, that was sort of the rule of thumb for women running for office, is that you just needed to be sort of the feminine version of what people expected leaders to look and sound and act like.
Right. Well, I'm not. I'm different, and I'm going to bring that voice to Richmond.
And I think that's great. And so let's talk about the fact that moms have been very important in your campaign. They were important to building BRAWS. You know, when you send out something and say, our shelves are empty, right? Like there's this outpouring, people go onto Amazon, they're like, we have to step up. So when it comes to community organizing, that has been a superpower of yours from the beginning. Activating people.
Right. You know, it's the power of the grassroots. I mean, a lot of these women have, as I mentioned, I'm the Democratic candidate. A lot of them are Democrats. They have Democratic values. They're not necessarily engaged with, like, you know, the Democratic committee, but they do. They have Democratic values, and some of those values means, you know, giving back to the community, helping those less fortunate. And so I offer them an opportunity, whether it's through my campaign or through the nonprofit they started, to be involved, to be engaged, to help, but with their own schedule, understanding, just like me, that, you know, having kids does take time, and you have to drive carpool, and, you know, you have to make dinner still, and like there are things that you still have to do, and so, you know, giving them this opportunity within their own schedule, I think, has been really the formula for success. And I'm grateful for them, just because I wouldn't be here speaking to you today without this network of moms that has really built me up, and believed in me, and given me the strength that I needed to pursue this new opportunity.
You know, one of the things that I've loved too is that people are taking their kids door knocking.
Yes, I love that.
And that's something else that, I mean, I don't recall seeing that, you know, even several political cycles ago.
Yeah.
But now, when people come for a Saturday canvas, they bring their kids.
Yeah.
And kids are door knocking.
No, it's an incredible lesson. It's something that they're going to be growing up doing, and our next generation, you know, will now be just becomes part of their weekend pattern where, you know, get up, you know, make their bed, do their laundry, and go knock on some doors. Like, I think it's just such a wonderful lesson, and it's been really, it's just been an incredible movement, and I'm happy to be part of it.
Well, I think you, again, being a teacher, starting a nonprofit that supports women and girls, obviously all of this has brought you to the point where when an opening came up,
yes,
and you had to decide, am I going to do it or not do it, that all of this factored in, knowing that you had a support network, that you knew you could activate your community, they knew you, they believed in you, they trusted you, and that they would show up for you. And that is so much in running a campaign, is believing and knowing that people are going to show up where it matters the most.
Right. They've done it before, and they did it again, and you know, I'm there for them. This is not just me running for office. This is a
group effort, right?
A group effort. This is something that we've done together. And yes, I was the original, like, here's a problem, let's come up with a solution. But it took an entire village of folks to help me solve that initial problem. And I see this as just a natural transition into the next position. Like, we're gonna see lots of problems, not just one this time, lots of problems, and we're all gonna solve it together. And you know, since being elected Democratic nominee, I've been able to meet with lots of, like, interest groups. I just met last week with a woman who, on a grassroots level, has been working in the, you know, trying to solve human trafficking in our community, right? It's very grassroots, very organic. And then I've been working and met with
Lucy Bidno from Arc of Northern Virginia,
right?
At Cameron's Coffee and Chocolates.
Yes,
I saw the photo.
Good, yes, and she was incredible, and what I learned from her was amazing. So surrounding myself by all these people is really important to me, just so I can hear their stories, and they're the experts in the field.
That's
and
right.
Being able to hear what they have to say, absorb that, and then be able to make decisions based on that feedback and their experiences and their expertise is really important. So it's no different than working with these interest groups, working with other nonprofits, than it is for me working with just like and having conversations at the doors of people in my community. It's just, again, I am the voice and representative of them. I'm not in this for my own self-interest. I'm not in here to promote, you know, a party. I'm in here to be able to represent the folks in my community and help those who need it.
Well, and I think you have those lines of communication open.
Yes.
Obviously, and I love the picture of Cameron because you know she's my cousin. But anyway, that's another story. We're going to go to a quick break.
Great.
When we come back from this break, we're going to talk more with Holly Seibold. She is running in a special election. The date on that is January the 10th in House District 35. So join us after the break.
I surrender.
All right, pal. Get ready for the day, buddy.
Hey, Dad. Hey, Dad. Do we have a gun?
What's that?
Do we have a gun?
Maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made this vacation happen.
Double points with every purchase?
Cleverly merging promotions.
I love it.
Cross-referencing travel sites. And booking all your flights with those...
vouchers. I got us bumped.
They were like, oh. But now they're like... Aloha. You aced this vacation. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
I tried Oxy at a couple of parties. I thought I had it under control. I didn't know it'd be this addictive. I didn't know how far I'd go to get more.
Opioid dependence can happen after just 5 days. Know the truth, spread the truth.
What to expect when you're expecting.
Like here.
A teenager.
Today, I'm going to show you how to teen-proof your home. First step, hide the car keys. Preferably somewhere they would never look. Challenges will come up. Be ready for them. Hi, honey.
Ready for the... Mom, you don't use mannequins in the mannequin challenge.
You don't have to know it all to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and tonight we are talking with candidate Holly Seibold, who is running in a special election in House District 35. So, Holly, one of the things when you were talking about how you've been talking with the ARC of Northern Virginia and groups that work on human trafficking, you know, you are correct. There are a lot of issues on people's minds. Gun violence prevention is one of them. Fending off further bans on abortion access, which we keep hearing, you know, you being in the House of Delegates, while we may not have a majority going into this legislative session, the fact of the matter is it takes every single person to both advocate for bills you hope that are bipartisan,
right, and
to fend off bad bills that you know, we hope are going to be met by the brick wall in the Senate. But a particularly abortion ban, and let's just talk frankly about the fact that that was a huge factor in midterm elections.
Yeah.
The red wave that was supposed to be didn't happen.
Right.
Because a lot of people at the polls were like, this is like my #1 issue.
Right.
And right now, abortion, people still have access to abortion in Virginia.
Right.
But we know that there's already talk from both the governor and people in the legislature about further bans or even a total abortion ban.
Right.
So is that something that you are hearing people tell you is a concern to them?
Oh, yeah. I mean, knocking on doors, that is one of the #1 issues right now for families. I think it's a really scary place to be in when, for example, my daughter has less rights to her body than I had growing up. And I think that it just terrifies families, you know, to think that the government can make decisions for what is in the best health for our kids. And so, you know, as I mentioned before Roe was taken down, I was a strong proponent for abortion rights, abortion access. And now that it's gone at the federal level, I think it's more important than ever that we need to protect it at the state level, which is another reason why I think it's important for people to understand how local politics and state politics works, because, you know, after Roe was overturned, you know, the same moms that we were just talking about, those who are involved in our community, you know, we're like, what can we do? What can we do? And my answer to all of them was, we need to elect Democrats. I mean, that was it. We need to elect Democrats because they're the ones that are going to protect abortion at the state level, at the local level. And so it's more important now than ever that we get out there and we vote in droves. You know, the consequences are it's just too dire.
You know, and I've been reading things lately too about the push for these personhood bills, and we've certainly had those bills before surface in Virginia, and they've been killed.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, it starts to impact IVF and in infertility treatment, and there's all of these unintended consequences that no one seems to be focused on when they're like making these draconian, total abortion ban and personhood bills, and there are states really that have these. I
know. I mean, to me, it's just cheap political points. I mean, that's what it is. To me, it's just, you know, Republican extremism, just finding ways to keep power. And so they're trying to create this hateful rhetoric and keep and use abortion or use guns and use us, frankly, as ways to keep their position. And so I don't like it. I don't think it has anything to do with what's best for people. And I would really like to see our government make choices on what's best for folks. I mean, we saw it in the last election that very conservative state still voted to keep abortion legal.
That's true, Kansas.
Right? Right. So that's not what the people want. They do not want to see abortion go away. They want it to exist. They understand that it's healthcare, and they understand that it's a personal decision. And so, you know, we can't be getting rid of abortion just to please like Republican extremists who want to win like political points, who want to keep their seats and maybe elect, you know, a twice impeached president. Like that is not the goal for, that is not what our role is as legislators. Our role is, again, not to be political. Our role is to do what's best for folks. And what's best for folks is to keep abortion legal and accessible.
And so polarization, the country has never been more polarized than it is right now.
Right.
In fact, there is no middle that's up for grabs.
Mm-hmm.
People are talking, and I'm sure you've heard this too, it's everybody's trying to bring out their base.
Yeah.
And so the rhetoric gets extreme as you're trying to turn out your base,
Exactly.
either as a Republican base or the Democratic base. But the fact of the matter is that, you know, things like gun issues is another one.
Exactly.
So in Virginia, you know, we have a long history of being very pro Second Amendment. We've had a little success. You know, is this something that you hope to have, you know, make some traction? Is that something in your district that people are talking about?
Oh yeah, I mean, again, another issue that we heard at the doors a lot. You know, there's a lot of families that live in our area, and there's a lot of moms like myself who have to send their kid off to school every day and hope that they can come home alive. You know, hearing stories from my son where he has to do a drill for what to do when there's an active shooter, and he's like, well, if I'm on this side of the building, I need to head over into this room. If I'm on this side of the building, if I'm outside, I just run over to that church, you know. And having my daughter come home, and the conversation is, well, you know, she was upset because they have a new policy in school where they don't have access to their cell phones during the day. And so I've heard her complain about this before, but this particular complaint was she wanted her cell phone so that when there's an active shooter in the classroom, she can write me and tell me that she loves me. You know, and so these are conversations that I'm having with my own children, and these are also conversations that other families are having with their kids, and it's terrifying. And again, as a teacher who's been in a classroom, you know, it's very scary to think that those kids just, you know, doing the minutia of the day are lining up to go to school and a shooter can come and gun them down. So, like, to me, it's just like the lives of our children are always more important than somebody running for re-election and needs to, like, you know, keep guns at all costs, even if the cost is the lives of our children.
Well, I have seen, like in today's newspaper, that there are counties in Virginia talking about arming teachers. Like, literally, somebody on a school board is like, well, we need to add more money. One county in particular has added more money to hire more school resource officers.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, there were school resource officers at Parkland, and there were school resource officers at Uvalde, and that didn't really seem to change the outcome.
Yeah.
So we've got Virginia counties going, we need to hire school resource officers. Some of them are like, we need to train and arm teachers. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, these are real conversations happening in Virginia at the school board level.
Right.
You know, how do you see the legislature playing a role in trying to bring some sort of sanity to common sense gun regulation?
Yeah, I mean, it's our role, especially as state legislators, to make sure that we introduce and pass gun violence protection and prevention policies, because, I mean, what you're describing are just more band-aids to a very large institutional problem. I mean, it's not going to solve any issues. We need to pass that. We also do need to, and one of the people I have met with this week are those who are mental health professionals as well, and, you know, we need to pass more funding in that area as well. So there's a lot that needs to be changed proactively and not so reactively, and that comes from the state. And I'm looking forward to working down in Richmond and being able to make those changes so that those in my community are safe.
And being a teacher, I'm sure it has not escaped you, the model the model policy around transgender children, number one,
right,
and the revisions to our history curriculum, number two.
Right.
These are very real things that are coming out of the Virginia Department of Education that are being spearheaded by the governor. How do you see this playing out, these issues playing out in this legislative session coming up in January?
Right, and again, this goes back to just this, the chaos, and the chaos that's created just by Republican extremism. Like, you know, transgender kids are one of the most vulnerable populations in the state. Very small population, but for some reason our governor has decided to target them. And he's targeted them, and the news and the media, conservative media, has targeted them. And I just think it's our job to protect these kids, and that is not what these elected officials are doing by targeting this small, vulnerable population. And then as an educator and also as a mom, I want my kids to be taught the truth in school. And watering down and whitewashing a curriculum is not the way to do that. So I value our education system, and I don't think that this is a good approach.
No, and it's just like, it just blows my mind, actually, that it's gotten this far.
I know.
And I think people don't really understand the place where we are in Virginia and how quickly it happened.
Yeah.
And how people elected a governor that they thought was just a nice guy in a red vest, and then he turned out not to be the person he portrayed himself to be.
Right. No, I don't know what his political ambition is, but right now, to me, it just seems like what he's doing is just in his own self-interest. And we shouldn't play with the lives of our families and our children to help, you know, Glenn Youngkin advance in his political career. We should do what's best for our families, and I intend to fully do that when I'm elected.
Well, we need to remind people again that early voting starts in just 2 days. On Wednesday the 23rd, people can start voting early for this January 10th election, because we have 45 days of early voting in Virginia, courtesy of the Democrats.
Yes.
You know, absentee ballots can be requested. There's early voting locations. There's going to be 2 Saturday voting times for this special election. People can drop off their absentee ballot. You know, these are the things that have made voting more accessible to more people.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder if there will be an unraveling of access to the ballot box in this legislative session. I mean, I don't know, but it concerns me. I don't know if it concerns you, but
yeah, I mean, with having a governor and a House body that is controlled by the Republicans, you know, it does concern me. I think our voting rights are one of the most important things as a government that we should focus on. Making sure anybody can vote anywhere, anytime, is really important. And being able to have that option of absentee ballots, early voting, and the day of is incredibly important. So I would like to see that.
True, same-day registration.
Same-day registration as well. Lots of options.
Made a difference in this last midterm election. I can tell you where I live. So we're going to go to another quick break, but join us after. We are talking with Holly Seibold. She is running in a special election, January the 10th, in HD 35 here in Northern Virginia.
Nice going, Spencer. I can't believe we broke Old Man Hennessy's window.
Correction, dude. You broke. I just threw the ball.
This is really bad. What are we gonna do?
We?
Go to the door, ask for the ball back. Are you serious?
It's my ball, Myrtleback.
You're so dead. I'd run away.
Yeah, to Uruguay.
Kiss your life goodbye. Sorry.
Let's go.
See you, dude.
See ya. You never mean you're well.
Nice life. Some friends you are.
Keep smiling, keep shining.
Hi. Tell him it was an accident. And we can fix the window. Come on. I'll come with you.
Loyalty. Pass it on.
You go first.
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
One day these rats were playing in the woods. Well, it's a matches and that's no good. Listen to smoke before you give it a try. Only you. Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about rooftop life. Nothing very nice on a homeless mind. So if we're going much as force, it's what you desire. Don't play with matches, don't play with fire. Yeah.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire.
Awkward. I'm the awkward silence. You try to avoid me, then there I am again.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing.
Like Kelly here is about to demonstrate.
You haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and we're talking with Holly Seibold, who is running in a special election in HD 35. So Holly, you had a wonderful event on Saturday night. I was there, and a lot of people were there. And Charnel Herring, wonderful woman, another Mason grad like myself. Charnel was talking about her special election. I'm trying to think what year that took place. I want to say it was maybe 2009. And it was a deep blue district. It's Alexandria.
Right.
And she was like, everybody's like, oh, Charnel will be fine because Alexandria is a deep blue district. And she barely won that race.
Right.
Because the Democrats did not come out to vote. She even said that there were volunteers working outside the polls who didn't go in to vote because they're like, well, it's a Democratic district, so you know, she's in.
Right, right.
And she told this as a cautionary tale about how every vote counts. Jim Scott, someone pointed out that Jim Scott, who is Marcus Simon's predecessor, won by 1 vote. They called him Landslide Jim. He won by 1 vote. So people need to understand that special elections, it's not on your calendar, it's out of sequence. We've just had an election, my goodness, how can we have another one already? Right? Like Wednesday, November 23rd is the first day of early voting, and people are like, we just did that last week.
Right.
So we need to talk about how you cannot take any of this for granted.
No, you cannot. I mean, you have to vote. You know, as we were saying before the commercial, there's lots of ways to vote. It's not necessarily, you know, we're trying to encourage people not to wait for January 10th because you get, as we mentioned earlier, you get busy, you have things to do.
It could snow.
Yeah, it could snow, and there's, you know, kids are back in school again. So luckily we have this option in Fairfax County to start next Wednesday, November 23rd, the day before Thanksgiving, and then it's starting back up again on Monday after Thanksgiving, and you can go each day to the government center and vote.
That's an early voting location for the entire time up until they start early voting that Saturday, because I think the 5 p.m. December 30th is the last day to request an absentee ballot.
Right.
We did discover that. And the fact that December 31st and January 7th are 2 Saturday voting.
And those are in the Providence Community Center, which is central to the 35th District, right near the Metro, very convenient. So people who can't make it to the government center can also vote on those 2 days.
Those 2 Saturdays.
Yeah, so it's a great option, as well as requesting an absentee ballot. It doesn't get any easier than that.
And really, in the legislature, when the Democrats had both chambers and Ralph Northam was the governor, this is what they brought us. And unlike many states where Republican state houses are trying to restrict voting, trying to restrict the voting locations and the number of days and how people can get ballots and drop off ballots. And in Georgia, you can't even get a drink of water if you're in line. So Virginia gave Virginians the opportunity to exercise their right to free and fair elections in a variety of ways. And I'm hoping that will not be unraveled and it will not be undone. But I think we should all be aware that there could be unraveling in this upcoming session. So let's assume that on January the 10th, you prevail and you win.
Right.
You start work the next day because session starts on January 11th.
It does. It starts January 11th, and it continues to February 25th. And that's why I think it's important to elect somebody with experience in Richmond. I've worked down there, as we talked about, for many, many years. I know how Richmond works. I have great relationships with Republicans and Democrats in the House and Senate. And so I'll be able to just, start right away and go and run from there, because I already have a network in place, and and we'll be able to, finish up that 1 year of Mark's term, and be able to represent us down in Richmond right away, starting on January 11th.
So the one thing that you won't have is, when legislators who are not in a special election, they have bills, right? So they have a number of bills. I think in the House you have a limit to the number of bills that you can file. You will not be doing that this year, because you don't know yet whether you'll actually be in the legislature. But bills drop, and there are thousands of them, thousands. And this is a short year. This is a 45-day, because in even years, in 2022 it was a 60-day term, and in odd years it's actually technically a 30-day term, but custom has always made it 45 days.
Right.
But it's still an enormous amount of time to look at thousands of bills. And so you are familiar with the process, having been on the advocate side of going before the subcommittees and going before the committees. You understand exactly how the process works for bills to be introduced, to survive, to get appropriated, to survive crossover, to come back. Bills are voted on 4 times.
Right, and that's why it's important to elect someone who does have that relationship. It's particularly because it is a Republican majority right now, and so being able to work across the aisle and getting things done is important. And all the bills that I worked on in the past as a citizen advocate were done with people on both sides of the aisle. So I'm looking forward to that, and that's part of why I've been doing my research now. It's very important. I do know that I need to wait to be elected before I'm actually officially.
Really, it's like I have all these bills, but I can't do them because I have to start tomorrow.
Exactly. So I'm already doing my research now. As I mentioned earlier, meeting with lots of different advocacy groups and interest groups in our area as important stakeholders, and meeting with them because I want to know what's important for them and what elected officials they're working with, and so I can, and I've told them so that they would let me know, if I do win on January 10th, January 11th, they can flag those bills for me, so I can immediately either co-patron the bill or lend my voice to it when it's being heard. So that's why I think it's important to start early right now. Obviously I have a campaign to run, but I also at the same time have to prepare if I am elected to be able to go, hit the ground running day one. And I really appreciate the time that these groups have given me, not even knowing I'm the candidate, but they've really spent a lot of time educating me on their issues, and I'm grateful for that.
Well, Lucy Beadnell I've had her on in this studio so many times. Lucy and I usually do an annual thing where she gets me up to speed on their programs, but also what their legislative agenda is, because many organizations every year will come back. Medicaid waivers are always like a big thing for them because there's never enough of them, and a lot of these really are bipartisan issues.
Exactly.
People are trying to figure out across both sides of the aisles, because everybody has constituents in their districts who need these Medicaid waivers, right? So everybody's trying to work on a solution that works, because legislators go down there to get something done. Everybody feels good when at the end of the session it's like, these are the bills the governor signed into law.
Right.
These are the great bills, and they're going to either start July 1 or they're going to start January 1, but look at what your legislature did during the legislative session. So it really does behoove people to go down there both with bills, but to go down there knowing if they're going to champion an organization's legislative agenda.
Right.
And so the Arc of Northern Virginia is just a favorite of mine.
I know.
But there are lots of other
great work.
There's a lot of other groups here in Northern Virginia who are also looking for legislative champions, people who understand their issues, understand the reasons behind whatever bills they're hoping will get passed.
Yeah, I mean, we all can't be experts in every issue, and that's why what's so great about this process is that it's important to turn to those in the community who are experts, who work with these folks every single day. Lucy's a perfect example that she works with so many people with disabilities, and it's in such a wide range of, they're not a monolithic group. Like there's just such a wide range of issues. But I would never be able to speak on their behalf, but luckily someone like Lucy exists from the ARC of Northern Virginia to be able to tell me their stories.
And how about lobby days? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm already meeting groups, just myself,
Yeah.
that are like, I'm like, so do you have a lot? Oh, yes, we have a lobby day. I
Right.
think the Human Trafficking Organization
Yeah,
is saying they've
mhm.
already got their legislative,
Yep.
their lobby day on the calendar. Equality Virginia always has a
Exactly.
big lobby day on
Yep.
the calendar. And so these are things, the calendar is already filled up really with
Right.
organizations who know what day they're going to do their community organizing
Mhm.
and take all of their people down to call on legislators, which is also a really important part if people have never done that.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, you've done it for 6 years, and that's to go around and literally knock on
Yeah.
legislators' door, make an appointment,
Yeah.
and sit down and tell them, you know, why they should care about the bill that you're championing.
Right, and now I'm looking forward to being on the other side to hear their stories. I find it all fascinating. I wish I could fix every problem in the world, but I understand we're going to have to prioritize. It is a short session, but you know, this would be my first year as a legislator down in Richmond, and I look forward to a long career working in government and public service, and being able to make change that helps folks.
So we should mention before we wrap up the show that we keep saying HD 35 because
Yes.
because that is the old district,
right?
And this is a special election. But as soon as the legislative session is over, there will be primaries. Probably in June. In
Mhm.
June, there will be primaries, and these are new districts.
Right.
Right. So
Mhm.
now you're going to come back to these same folks
Yeah.
and say, please elect me to HD 12.
Exactly.
And some of the people will still be in the district, and some of the people will no longer be in the district, and you will have brand new people
meet.
who are now
Mhm.
in HD 12. So people need to be prepared that 2023 is going to be a time of tremendous change.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And we all kind of have to start over. I'm now going to be in HD 11 myself.
Okay.
You know?
All right. Yeah.
So we all have to get used to being in a different district in our Senate and our House, and to
Right.
understand that maybe the people who represented you before are not going to
Mhm.
represent you now. So
Right.
there's going to be a learning curve, I think, before we come back to vote in November.
Mhm.
But for now, we just need people to focus on the fact that someone needs to go to Richmond on January 11th.
That's right.
And that you are the candidate that best represents
Mhm.
your community. And people can find information on your website.
Yep. HollySeibold.com. I would
And
encourage everyone to
on
go there.
Twitter,
Mhm.
which is Holly Seibold VA, and Instagram is Holly Seibold
Mhm.
VA. And so there's lots of ways for people to find out where you are, what you're doing, how they can help.
Yeah.
You know, if people want a cool pink T-shirt, you
Yeah.
can probably make that happen for them.
Definitely
If you-
sign up to volunteer. They get a pink shirt to come along with that.
That's right. So if you rock pink,
yeah,
this is your chance to get a Holly Seibold
That's right.
T-shirt, and then hang on to it
Yes.
for November. Put it over a sweatshirt next time.
Right. Yeah, no, it would be great. As I said, I love including new volunteers in the process. People who've never been,
engaged right?
before, who want to, understand how democracy works. So encourage them to come to our website, learn more, and to volunteer. We love having kids as part of our campaign. So, and teenagers as well, just to learn the process and how it works. So please visit our site.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank
because
you.
I think you are going to make a great delegate.
Thank you very much, Catherine.
And for those of you at home, you have learned a lot about the process of electing a legislator in a special election. So keep your eye January 10th. If you're in the 35th district, find out more about Holly Seibold.